further ado, I'd like to introduce Marianne Cook, who's standing right over here. She is our Associate Dean as well as a Professor of Management at the Agino School of Business. Marianne has been with GGU since 2008. Prior to moving to the Bay Area, she lived in Portland, Oregon, where she worked as a Director of HR. She was a professor and an HR consultant. She has also taught at the University of Oregon and worked in HR in New York City. Marianne got her PhD in HR and Business Management at Columbia University. Her passion is finding better ways to manage people at work. She and her husband are parents of 2 grown children who live farther away than she would like. Marianne, come on over.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Wow. I am so excited to welcome all of you here for our 2nd annual event, Women in Leadership. We've grown. We are now, how many people are graduates of the business school? How many people are graduates of the tax school? Accounting school? Law school? Woohoo! All right, great, great. Well, welcome and thank you all. I'd like to give a quick shout out to Cassandra DeLosa and her team for helping put all of this together. Thank you very much. And I would like to welcome our panelists and our moderator, who we are delighted are joining us. All of these fine women have graduated from GGU as well, and you will hear about them shortly. We are here, we're sold out, as Kendra told you. We have overflow space up on the 6th floor, and we're also streaming online right now. So, and as Kendra said, tweet hashtag GGU Women and have a great time. We will have questions at the end. Thank you very much. And I'd now like to present Cassandra Sawyer, who's going to be our moderator.
I'm so glad to be here, so honored, so privileged to be in this room of amazing women. It is definitely my honor. And I'm happy to introduce the panelists that will be speaking to you tonight about their experiences as being a woman in leadership. We have Judith, who is a VP of Corporate and Investor Communications at Envivio. We have, and Judith is sitting there in the middle. At the end, we have Dana, who works for BPM as a Senior Tax Manager. And then we have Minnie, who is the VP of Human Resources at Yahoo. Okay, so thank you, ladies, for being here. We'll go ahead and get started with tonight's questions. The first question is about career planning. So to you ladies, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to a woman who is just now planning her career? How about we start with Judith?
Okay. Can you hear me all right? So hi everybody, I'm Judith. It's a real pleasure to be here tonight. If I was in the audience and 30 years younger than I am now, I think these are the things I'd like to be told. Some of it through wisdom, some of it through experience. I think career planning you have to look at as part of your life. Life happens anyway, no matter what plans you do or don't make. My own personal experience of life and career planning is that I've had dramatic life changes on my 0 birthdays. So, at 20, I trained as a trilingual secretary, old school, last year to learn Pitman. We were shown computers but not allowed to touch them. And at that point, at 20, I realized that I couldn't be a PA or a secretary. It wasn't for me. I hated being bossed around, so I had to find something else I was going to do. Long story short, I fell into public relations, discovered that that was what I loved, and that took me to London, to Apple Computer, and then eventually by a twisting road, it also took me to America, to here. At 30, my marriage imploded on my 30th birthday as we were living in Singapore. That's an unplanned event. You may not get the job and the industry and the salary and the location that you want, but if you can get 3 out of 4, that may be good enough.
There's been so many times in my life when I've been extremely uncomfortable, and by just showing up is half the battle, and putting your best foot forward, you learn and you grow. And if you're around supportive, positive people, no one's going to say, you know what, you messed up. They'll say, you know what, that was a great job that you did, but maybe next time you could tweak this a little bit. And be willing to work hard for what you expect and make your expectations known. So if you expect, okay, in 2 years, I know I want to be a manager or I want this position, start performing at the level above you some of the tasks that are required, so that when it comes time to promote you, it's not, should we promote this person? It's, what do we need to do to keep her? Because she's such an asset to the company or to the firm. So just always having those expectations known by everyone. And one of my favorite sayings that I always live by is that it's easier to ask for forgiveness than it is to get permission. So if you have a great idea, instead of always running it up the chain, if you know it's a great idea and it's going to help the company or it's going to help who you're working for, run with it. The worst thing that someone can do is say, you know what, that's not working out, let's stop that, whatever. And at that time, maybe you evaluate if this is the place you want to be. But nothing's written in stone. You can reinvent yourself at the same company or same firm, or you can switch careers.
I think more recently I've learned that there's 2 actually really important things. Now, if I ever change jobs, it would be who my manager is. I have to say I learned this in my 40s. I wish I had known that in my 20s. And maybe because I've been fortunate enough, one of my colleagues who's here with me, she and I had a conversation once talking about how somebody she knew didn't like her employees, and the employees didn't like the manager, and the manager, I was like, that's never happened to me. I've always very much respected the people I worked for, but that was different than being with someone who elevated me to the next level. Who, I think to Dana's point, when you can show that you're bringing something to the table, they will automatically want to elevate you. And I've only had 2 managers that I can look back at and say they elevated me. So now I very much pay attention not only to the work that I would be doing, but who's that person I'm working with and the people around me. Because really those people are, as much as you can work hard, the people around you are helping you be successful. And that's been kind of an aha moment that I had in my 40s, which I tell everybody, I'm like, I wish somebody had told me that a long time ago. Because I think I would have changed my decisions and choices. By the way, I also work for 2 people that made me very uncomfortable. The 2 people that have been my favorite and where I excelled, where I felt I was being challenged, were the people who made me the most uncomfortable, because they literally gave me all the challenges that I needed, except that I kind of helped myself back. So I hope that that makes sense. The second is also something I learned not too long ago in my current job, which is know what you're really good at. And really focus on that. I think too often we focus a lot on where do we have to develop ourselves, and I always say continue to do that because it's important to always develop. And by the way, you never stop learning. It doesn't matter how young or old or what you think you know and what position you hold or what title you hold. You should always be thinking, I'm in learning mode, which is always that working hard aspect. But for me, I was offered a role that I did not even think I wanted. I did it because I thought it would look good on my resume. And in HR, there's these business partner roles where you are partnering with a business leader in your company, and I had done that for 15 years, and I was like, that's what I love doing. And I was offered a job to be more operational. And my boss at the time, the first boss that ever stretched me, said, I want you to go do this role. And at the time, I was like, yeah, I'll do it because it'll look good on my resume, and then I'm going to go back to being a business partner. I'll do this for 1.5 years. That'll be enough on my resume. And I've never gone back to being a business partner. And I realized over the last 3 or 4 years as I've been doing this, it's because it was actually elevating my strengths. And it was challenging me in ways I hadn't, so it actually put me in a different level. and I'm having the most fun, and I'm most influential. And I don't not feel like a business partner at the company because I feel like an influence, maybe just in a different way. And I remind myself that we all have 24 hours in a day, and so you get to choose every day what happens in those 24 hours. And some days I can balance it and figure out how to manage, and most often I can't. I'm a new mom. I have a baby who's 17 months old, and so, and I did this in my 40s, which is even crazier, I think. It's great experience, but when you have a demanding job, I feel like my job is very demanding of my time. It's hard to try to figure out how to balance all the things you need and how to take care of yourself. And you know, I tell my team, everybody hears this, I'll walk into meetings some days, and this is a story I'll tell. I remember a day I was so just overwhelmed. There was like emails coming at me. I get about 200, 250 emails a day. And so I had emails coming at me. I have my husband texting me because there's something going on with the baby. I have a staff meeting to have with my team. And I walk in and I was just like, okay, I'm having a bad day. I'm not even ready for this meeting, but I know we need to meet and talk about some things. So let's just meet and tell me what you want to talk about. And I just want you to know that, like, I am not organized today. I'm not even sure which way's up. It's the first time I'd ever done this. This is about 6 months ago. And we walked, you know, the meeting was fine. Everybody was good. And one of my then employees, she doesn't work for me now, came up to me and said, "Thank God you said that." And I looked at her and I said, "What?" She goes, "It's nice to hear sometimes from other people, including your boss or people who are at higher levels, that they also experience the same things." And she's like, "Just want you to know it was really helpful because I have several of those days, and I just want to know that it's normal," and it is. And so that was an aha moment for me to share more of how I'm doing and what's going on, because I think people just assume you have it all together. I can tell you right now, I have no clue sometimes, you know, what goes on. And I was on a business trip, some of the panel folks know, and I haven't done laundry in 2 weeks. I was on the grocery store. We are working on whatever is in the cupboards, and my husband's great. He is, you know, part-time stay-at-home dad, but like there's just so much always going on. And so I just want to share that with you. Like, it's normal on any given day, and I haven't met anyone in my life who's got it all figured out. So I think sometimes when you hear people say they've got it all figured out, it actually confuses me. And then I'd be like, what are they doing? And you know, and you have to make personal choices. My husband and I, when we had our daughter, had made the personal choice that we were going to raise her. We were not going to have lots of nannies and lots of people. And we don't have family here. We're both from other parts of the country. You just have to kind of make those decisions. And so, you know, all I can share is, you know, when someone figures it out, that will be a magic pill that many people, and by the way, I didn't ask my colleague to share this with you. This is not just a woman's issue. I have colleagues who are male who I've talked to, who are single dads or, you know, or as much partners in a relationship we've talked about exactly the same issues, trying to figure out who's picking up the kids from daycare and how, and you got a meeting. And so I just want to be clear. I think a lot of times in the news and media these days, it's a lot around women, but I think that men face the same types of issues as women do. I think
work-life balance is a human issue,
it's absolutely,
right? It's a human issue. Judith, Dana, anything you guys like to add?
Sure. I think anyone here who works in public accounting or is planning to work in public accounting, which I have for over 10 years now, you know the hour requirements, especially in your earlier years. And so, you know, you'd have sometimes 90-hour work weeks, and maybe you're commuting. And if you add this to, okay, I'm going to grad school and I'm trying to take the CPA exam, and I'm still trying to have a relationship and have friendships and see my family. It was a pretty big wake-up call for me when I needed to reset. So it was the same year I had moved. I was getting married. I was finishing my master's program, and I had a new job at a new firm and trying to help develop that group. And I ended up working myself so much that I fainted, fell on my face, and chipped my tooth and split my lip. And it was at that time when I realized I need to reprioritize what's the most important to me. My health should be number one or at the very top of the list, and my family and my friends. And I think you have to get to that point where you set your priorities, and it doesn't mean your priorities now will be the same priorities you have 5 years from now. So now I'm expecting our first child, and my priorities have once again shifted. What I've been able to do with my work is have a flexible schedule. So I've proven that I'm, responsive and responsible when I'm not in the office. I work 2 days a week from home. Because I'm not commuting into the city, I live in the East Bay. I have that extra time to catch up on laundry, throw a load in when I'm in between emails, or run to the grocery store or whatever. So for me, that helps. And then also scheduling. I schedule everything. So, I might have with my best friends a month or 2 months out a dinner that we're gonna have, and I know that sounds ridiculous, but just to get it on the calendar, and because everyone's so crazy and has their own lives, put it on the calendar. Even if it's something fun, and that way you're sticking to what you have prioritized.
So I'm also a big fan of scheduling. I'm completely guilty of working while on vacation. And what I try and do now, I've worked for startups in the past, I've worked for international companies, and so what I try and do is I broker a deal with my family that it'll be just half an hour in the morning and half an hour in the evening. And what's good about that is that you do not feel like you're under an avalanche when you go back to work. What's bad is that you're switching in and out of your vacation, but it's that, that's the reality. I tend to travel quite a bit on business, and I've really got very committed to giving myself at least half an hour a day when I do something completely non-work related. So I worked out how to go jogging in New Delhi. I read analog books, so it's really nice to sort of switch off your tablet and your laptop and your phone and read something completely unrelated to business. Then you come back fresh and ready to work some more. I think what's happening right now with technology is amazing, because we do have the ability to work from wherever we are. It is a little bit of a, poison chalice. It's an opportunity to be where we want to work if we can show our employers or our business partners that we're trustworthy. But I think overall it's such a huge gain in terms of flexibility. So.
Very nice.
Pack your running shoes.
I'll just add a couple of things here. I agree with the points on scheduling. I schedule everything from the moment I get up to the moment I go to bed. Scheduling is not very sexy, it's not very exciting or spontaneous or anything like that, but by scheduling every little bit of my day, I get to live as much life as possible, because I can make sure it all gets fit in that way. So I have friends here who will tell you that they don't see me sometimes because I haven't been able to fit them into my schedule, but when I do, it's a great time, and I can really give myself to that moment and not be distracted by something else. So some people need spontaneity, and I think that's a great thing, but there's nothing wrong with living a scheduled life, because you get to get the most out of it. You really can squeeze every second literally out of life. And then I'll also add that I had the great fortune of being in Mary Ann's class when I was here getting my MBA, and I learned there was an aha moment for me in her class where I learned about something called the 4-way win, where you've got your personal life, your professional life, your personal, professional, family, and your community or friends commitment. And how to make that all come together, because you traditionally think you have to sacrifice one for the other. And I learned that's not the case. Now, this is not necessarily having it all together, because I definitely don't have that. But what I can say is what I learned is that I can find overlapping pieces of that, so I don't have to sacrifice one for the other. And the key to making that happen is going to those individual parts of your life and speaking to the stakeholders in your life. So I'm big into working out, and I've got 2 children at home. I've got a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old, and I didn't know how I was going to make all that work in addition to working and having friends and wanting to do what I wanted to do. But I went, and everyone knows now, because I've gone and had conversations with people. Here's what I want to do. Here's what's important to my life. How can we make this work? So my boss understands that I'm going to be late to work sometimes because I'm at the gym and I don't want to go because I'm having a good pump. right? My kids understand that mommy's going to work out. Sometimes they come with me and sometimes they can't. They love it. But these are conversations that I have. I'm a single mother now, but my husband at the time, understood there's going to be times where dinner might be the same thing we had last night. But you have those kind of conversations with the stakeholders in your life, and you find a way to make them all overlap and integrate one another, as opposed to feeling like this has to be here and there, and they're all segregated. So I would encourage you to, there's articles, there's books on the four-way win. I would highly recommend, if you can't take Mary Ann's class and learn from the best, that you look into that concept. We'll move on. We've got a few more minutes left, and I want to make sure we get a couple more questions in. So finding a mentor. Networking, mentorship, and sponsorship are all important to our growth in our careers. Can you tell us how you've approached or how you've benefited from those types of relationships? Would anyone like to start?
Sure, I can. Oh, okay. So at my firm that I'm working at currently, in the last firm, we've had very formal, structured mentorship, coaching programs. So I've been assigned to be the coach of different associates, and I'm also the coachee, of a partner. What I've set up and what I found is the most rewarding for the people that work for me is to have really an open door policy and a very honest approach. I don't sugarcoat anything. I have a set meeting every 2 weeks where they can use that time to talk about their personal life and problems. They can talk about specific clients they have. They can talk about their career path, even if that's outside of the firm and it's all confidential. So I think just having that, that the comfort space and that comfort zone allows them to open up and then to also trust me. And, I've found those people are the most dedicated and the most committed, not only to me, but also to the firm. And then, when I look for a mentor, it's someone that I've always, had a lot of respect for and just admired their work ethic. And then I pick their brain. I'll say, this is the issue that I'm going through. How did you approach it? How did you get to be where you were? I found those informal relationships are very important as well.
So my experience of mentoring has been pretty much informal. I've worked at startups and moved around a fair amount. So I've really got a very unstructured approach to it, but I like to feel that there are a number of people who call me, and there are a number of people whom I can call when I've got a question or I want some feedback on something. I've also had the great experience of coaching someone in their 20s, and then they helped me and coached me back when I was going through a transition as well. I think we didn't touch on this in career planning, but I think it's really important for people to understand different generations' needs and characteristics and profile, because as people and women in the workplace, we're all going to be working longer. We're going to be working with, boomers, Gen X, Gen Y, millennials, call them whatever you like, call yourself whatever you like. It's really important to understand, how you may or may not be doing in a workspace if you're working with people of different ages. So, and from a mentoring point of view, I highly recommend getting someone a lot younger than you to mentor you if you're going into an environment that is heavily populated by someone of that generation. It makes them sound like aliens, doesn't it?
For me, I've actually only ever had informal mentors and advisors and coaches, and what I've always done is create I call it my personal action committee, my PAC. And my PAC it's different people, and at different times, it's not always necessarily the same person. And it can be different different folks. At work, I always, because I'm in HR, we think about this stuff all the time, but I always make sure there's people that I can see as advisors and coaches at work. And half of those people are usually in HR and half not. They're in other parts of the business that I know, people I trust, people that I've gotten to know. There could be something that they've taught me through the process. But I also, and there's a whole bunch of people who work with me in the back. Maybe you should plug your ears for this part. But I also say it's really important, I share this with them, it's really important to, as many people that you have as mentors or coaches or advisors in the company, you should have outside the company. I've been in my job for 8.5 years. I've always kept in touch with people outside of my company because the environment's constantly changing, especially being here in Silicon Valley, but that's true in any industry. And I always want a fresh perspective of someone who isn't caught up in the same, perhaps, business issues or the same. And I also don't necessarily think one person or a couple of people provide you everything. I go to different people for different issues. I also, when I'm in meetings or different sessions, like this, for example, I'll pay attention to what people are doing and kind of look at that as an opportunity for me to go, what is it that that person's doing that I liked? What was it that about that presentation? And so I try to use every moment, or when I can see myself being interested in something, like what was it about that session? I heard a woman speak at Yahoo, and it was actually Women in Tech, and she was talking about career, and she was actually a businesswoman, worked at Goldman Sachs, and I just loved the way she presented by telling stories. And I listened to her for an hour, and I walked away and I said, that's what I've got to do. And when I present, I need to tell it with her stories because it has much more you resonate more with stories than just looking at a PowerPoint presentation or something which is bland. So I take every opportunity you have from people around you, and it doesn't even have to be people in your own profession or specific industry. Take advantage of the people you meet. I will tell you the number one important thing, and this comes from an HR professional, networking is the most important thing that you can do. And anyone and everyone you meet should be in your network somehow. And every job I've ever found has come through a network. And that's an important element because your network will help you. They want to help you. And the only other thing I would say is people seem to be shy to talk to people. And the first thing I would do is if you're interested in a person or a company or a job, go talk to people. People will never say no. And all you have to do is ask for 10 or 15 minutes. Anytime anyone has asked me for that time, I've always given it. It may not be right away. It may be a week from now or a month from now, depending on my schedule, but I've never said no. And no one will ever say no because people like talking about themselves and giving advice. And so why not take advantage where you can? That's what I would say.
I agree. I would say just always show up. I mean, this is a form of mentorship, right? Everyone here has come to learn from the panel. We're all learning great, interesting things. We're all networking as a result of this. So as many of these types of events you can attend, definitely do any networking events that you can. I mean, we've all heard the saying, right? It's not what you know, but who you know. And that's very true. I can't wait to get the answer to this next question because me being a human resources professional, you'd think I'd have a better grasp on this, but I don't. So I'm going to be eagerly listening and taking notes on what have you learned about asking for what you want, specifically when it comes to negotiating salaries.
You're not allowed to ask. Okay, just remember that it's all about karma.
Go ahead.
Well, in the tech industry, if you didn't get that joke, it was the CEO of Microsoft at a women's engineering conference said that really we should all trust to the fact that if we're working in a good place with good people, we would have good karma. We shouldn't ask for raises or progressions. And this is in the tech industry. This has caused a firestorm, which I think will actually bring some really good things forward. One of my mentors was telling me that who has presented at Grace Hopper in the past, is planning to work with some of the executives that were there to kind of make next year a much better and happier place. So just very briefly on salaries, I think there's a lot of good information out there and advice. The one thing I experienced a few months ago was that I was negotiating with my current employer and they were absolutely desperate to know what I'd earned in my last position. And I'm very proud to say that I didn't cave, but it was really tough because if you want a job and you want to, many women, including me especially, want to be liked. So it's very difficult to take up a strong line and say, this is the salary I'm looking for, this is the salary that goes with this position, I'm very excited to join, but not to tell them the number. And so I'm very interested to hear from Minnie on this, but we did reach a satisfactory outcome, because this is where I'm working now. But I really recommend that you put aside any personal feelings, and just this is a negotiation. It's business. It's your business. It's the company of me that you're taking care of. So be just cold and nice and professional about it.
Dana, do you want to?
Oh, if you have something first, go ahead.
I think it's important to be direct. I think you have to really think about what is important to you. There are times, I'll give myself as an example, there have been times where I really wanted the job and get my foot in the door because it was going to be hard, because I had just moved to the US from Canada. Nobody ever heard of any of the universities I've ever been to or any of the companies I'd worked at, and I knew that I would be starting from scratch. And so at that point, I was willing to take a pay cut for getting my foot in the door and be able to build myself. But I was also very, I wouldn't say confident. I knew I would work hard to prove that I could get to where I needed to be. And when I felt that was the right time, I went and asked. So I think it's when you're negotiating, when you're starting a new job, and or when you're in a job, I've said this to my team, I would say this to anybody who ever came to me, my friends, when you're in HR, people always ask lots of advice. And what I've always said is, if you want something and it's important to you, think about what you're gonna ask, be prepared for the conversation, have the conversation, and that can be for compensation or even a job that you're interested in, a promotion, any kind of anything that you're looking for. It's really important to do that, but also be prepared that the answer could be no. And I've had all that happen to me, where I've asked, I've been clear about what I need, and the answer was, we hear you, thank you, your work, we appreciate you, but no, we can't do that right now. And you then have to make decisions. These are personal decisions, but if you don't ask for a job or a promotion or a salary, how are they going to know that that's what you want? And what I find too often is people don't ask. And I'll be honest, I didn't ask for many, many years. Now it's taken a long time to get to that point, and it is a very uncomfortable conversation to have, no matter how good you are at negotiating, because it's personal. But I agree with Judith, make it professional. If you are very sincere and have good talking points, no one can deny you that. They just may not be able to do it for business reasons, and it may not be about you. But how are you going to get the job if you don't? I will tell you, almost everybody who is on my team came to me at one point and said, I'd like to come work on your team to do X, Y, Z. And I said, okay, at some point. For some it worked faster than others, but if they had never come, I wouldn't have known they were interested. And when the right opportunity came, I was able to tap them. In fact, almost everybody sitting back there that works for me has come to me at some point, tapped them, and got an opportunity. If I just posted the job, I wouldn't even have thought about them. But the fact that they took the effort to just come and talk to me and say, I know it may not be today, but I'm curious. That's why I like the feedback. Like, from a career perspective, even if it's something you want a year from now, ask now. Don't be shy. Don't wait. There's no reason to wait. If you know you want something, go. And that's the same with compensation. So even if the next review is like 6 months away, if it's important to you today, ask. Have the conversation with the manager.
We've got another few minutes, or another minute or so before we move on to the next question. So Dana,
Yeah, sure. So on this, I had a personal experience and something I learned. So this is only the second firm I've worked for. So mine was more, moving from one position up to the next. And originally when I started, I was doing a great job, but I wasn't doing the type of tax that I wanted to do. And so when I communicated to the partners I worked with that I wanted to switch the type of tax and the type of work, so reinventing myself at the same firm, it didn't necessarily go over so well. So they did promote me to manager at that time, but the compensation package to match did not match with my expectations. So, I said, okay, I'm going to stick this out one more year. Now that I get to do what I want to do, I'm going to put my full heart into this, and I'm going to prove to them what I'm worth. So by the end of that year, I had not only, exceeded their billing expectations of client management, staff development, and all that, and surpassed my peers, but it was very obvious that I belonged where I was. And so before my evaluation and before the raise conversation came up, I said I expect a 20% increase. And I had all of this data to explain why I expected that. I laid out everything I had done, because you often find, or I've often found in my experience, people forget what you did 2 months ago. You're only as good as the last project you did. So women have a hard time bragging about themselves, or not bragging, but saying what you've accomplished. And unfortunately, in the professional world, you do have to kind of keep a tally and make sure you get credit for the work you do. So my biggest comment would just be, know your worth and be assertive. Do not be afraid to ask for it. All this education you've put your time and money into, all your experience, it's not worth nothing. You are valuable, so know you're valuable.
Great response. All right, so we've got about 3 or 4 minutes, so we can be concise and maybe just fire off a few tips for effective communication at work. Effective communication at work. What have you learned about how to communicate effectively at work? Whether it's in a smaller context, emails, conference calls, maybe a small team meeting, or a larger venue like this, where it's a women in leadership discussion.
Sure, I can start. So I kind of put some bullet points together. You know, I think when you're starting out and you're new, if you've never written a professional email to a client or someone, draft them. If, you know, I work at a firm, so maybe a partner or a manager would get an email asking a technical question from about a subject. And as a staff, I would start practicing drafting those emails and having the partner or manager review them so they could see my business style of writing and they can critique and edit. So that's a good way to start. For meetings, what I found is effective is having an agenda and giving it to everyone ahead of time so that they know what's going to be discussed. Having one set leader who's going to run that meeting so it's not a chaotic mess. And, you know, one of my things too with emails, I would just say, watch the number of times you use the word please. A lot of times what I'll notice women doing is every other sentence is please do this, please. You know, again, be assertive in what you're asking for, be confident. This is a professional world. You do not need to ask permission and you know, an acceptance and be well liked in this world. So just watch the number of pleases.
Thank you, Judith.
So we could talk all night about this, but let's just think about how you use meetings at work. Yeah, I've just said there you go. Make sure that your voice is heard in meetings. You will be interrupted. Make sure you get back and get to your spot and make yourself heard. Don't think that it's strange to prepare some talking points for a meeting, even if it's a relatively informal meeting. It's okay to be prepared and ready. One of the things I had to learn was the switch in meetings between casual talk and transactional talk. Most business meetings, it's really important that you have a bit of a chit-chat right at the beginning, but then also notice, or if you're leading the meeting, say, okay, let's get into the business of you know, whatever the topic is. But don't rush too quickly into the business stuff, because in many cultures, you're going to come over as extremely inappropriate, rude, or brash. And it is, you know, the casual talk is a chance to bond with people and actually get a feeling for, you know, how people are going to be in that particular meeting and what mood they're in. But then, you know, notice when the gear changes and we're into transaction, and make sure that your voice is heard appropriately.
Thank you. Vinny.
I guess I would just add, know your audience. If you're in a meeting with executives, understand that they have very little time. You want to be concise, clear, have your strong voice. If you're running a meeting, how do you run those? If you're working with people globally or internationally, how do you make sure that you are doing all those things to make sure you are not in any way offending anyone, but at the same time trying to get things across? I would say that's what I've learned the most. And every company seems to have a communication culture of their own. And I think you have to figure out what does that look like? And I think Dana had talked about it. Even to this day, my team knows that I don't like writing things, so I will test everything with someone else on my team. I will go to other people and show my presentations. I will go to other people and say, this is what I think I want to project. Is that coming off the page? So you just have to know what kind of communication culture you're working in and what people prefer. In my role, I work with a variety of folks, everything from an employee to top-level executives, and so I'm constantly paying attention to myself, like what is the voice, what is the purpose, how much am I supposed to talk, how much is this really about the person I'm talking to. So the reason I say audience, because it can mean so many things, and communication is how you really get things done. And so you just have to pay attention to how you're communicating. I will tell you, when you're starting out, being professional is so important. I will get emails that will say all kinds of things that they shouldn't, like swear words, and I'm like, okay. But that doesn't mean you should be necessarily communicating back the same way. And so you have to really think about, just because someone else communicates a certain way doesn't mean you should be either. I can tell you, not these days, but in the past, we've had a culture where people would swear like bad sailors. And I actually had made the point to never do that, even though other people were. Now, that doesn't mean you don't build relationships and get to know the people and make sure that they know who you are and have that friendly chit-chat, but you have to really think about your audience and how do you fit in and how do you want to be seen. And there's, obviously times where it's okay to be a little bit more laid back, and then there's times where it's better to be more formal. Just pay attention to the audience and what's the important communications that you have to do.
Thank you. We'll move on to question and answers, and I'll just add really quickly that there's also nonverbal communication that should be paid attention to. If you've never seen yourself on video, go videotape yourself and look at your nonverbal cues, right? Because that says something to the people that you're speaking to, sometimes even over the phone, even on conference calls. I used to be in sales, and they would always say smile and dial, because when you would smile and make a sale over the phone, that smile carries through in that conversation. So be aware of your nonverbal communication as well. That would just be my tip. So we're going to move into question and answer. So the floor is yours. What questions do you have for our panel? Way back there.
Hi, my name is Dia, and I graduated here at Golden Gate. I got a master's in public administration, and then I also got a master's in healthcare administration. And I'm a publicist. I started my own PR company. Have your journeys been linear? Because I've not gone into either. I've absolutely loved it. I'm an undergraduate in accounting at State. But I know what I'm natural at. I know what I like and what I'm good at. So a lot of times when I'm pitching clients, they look at the resume, and they say, what happened to the public administration, when I was in healthcare, and I'm a publicist, and I love it. So has your career been pretty linear, and all the education is kind of lined up? And if not, how's the conversation to convince otherwise that yes, I've done all that, that doesn't mean I'm scattered. I'm still very focused.
Who wants to take that question?
Hi. So, I think the first thing I'd say in that situation is that no experience is ever wasted. You might remember that I trained as a secretary. I type incredibly fast. It gives you a lot of power over Skype. So I think realistically, life is non-linear, and anyone who questions your bona fides because you've had a career or a life full of variety and experience, I'm not sure I'd really want to work with them. I love hearing people's stories where they kind of talk. Marianne took us through this on our MBA class, where we talked about happenstance and how one event leads to another and leads to another. Utterly predictable. So, I hope that as you build your successful publicity business, people see the value of all of your different experiences. There's a thread in there somewhere.
Thank you. Any other questions from this side of the room?
Can I add to that? Yeah, so I actually spent the first 9 years of my career in law enforcement. I did not do HR. Because I thought I was going to be a lawyer.
So you can do it.
But actually, it's actually a great way to get into HR. It's a great experience. But people don't see that, and I think to the question, I thought I was going to be a lawyer, so lawyers in the room. Decided that it was not working for me. Had taken a few HR type classes and went, oh, I like this. And what you have to do, to Judith's point, is show them that the skills that you have translate. And it is a bit of work to do that on your part, but I am the same as Judith. There are so many skills that translate. I'm actually going to throw him under the bus. Jeremy, who is sitting in the back, the one fellow who joined my team, he actually worked in the media organization at Yahoo. And he was having conversations with a bunch of folks in HR, and somebody said to me, "Have you talked to Jeremy?" I'm like, "Who's Jeremy?" They said, "He's from the media organization, and he seems to be interested in HR. Will you talk to him?" The first time I met him, I offered him a job. He has no HR experience. He's never done it. The work that he's doing now is like, you know, he was able to translate his skill set and the kind of things that he does and what got him excited. Well, when he did that, it got me excited. And then I was like, well, wait a minute, I want him on my team. And I said to him, you better learn HR. But I want you on my team. And so I think that you have to get people excited about what you bring to the table. And that can be from anywhere. Because every skill is transferable, you just have to be able to articulate it.
Thank you.
I want to go back to the topic of work-life balance and creating boundaries in the workplace. A lot of us do 50, 60, 90 hours, seasonal work, whatever. How do you approach a conversation with your superiors or your upline in regarding managing the work that you do? You stated that it's, very effective in documenting what you do, but when you do things so well and you're so effective and efficient that they don't feel comfortable handing it to someone else, or they don't see the need to bring on because you're absorbing a lot of that. So how do you make that distinction in getting help and, so that you're not getting calls after hours on the weekends and on vacation?
Yeah, so I think, when I went through the experience I did, I reset my expectations not only with myself, but with my superiors. And so it was, okay, after the set hours, I'm offline. I'm not checking my phone. If it's busy season, that might be a different story because it's kind of expected. And I know that going into it. My husband knows that going into it. I've made a rule for myself when I'm on vacation, no communication with work. I've made it very clear I'm completely unavailable. It doesn't matter if I'm one city over, if I'm off, I'm off. And what I did communicate is the need for more people. And not only just saying, oh, we need to hire more people because I don't want to work as much. It was, look, I can help you grow this practice if you hire people below and you let me train them. Because what if I leave? Then what are you going to do? You're not going to have me. You're not going to have anyone. Let me help you build this practice and build this team. And so kind of showcasing how it would benefit them if I work less because I have more people and I'll be, fresh to come in. That was how I was able to make it work and stay at the same time.
Thank you. That was excellent. Any other questions?
I want to go back to the topic about communication, about emails. Email is being used in business every day, so many times, and it's very convenient. But sometimes email can work against you. Sometimes you will get fired just because of an email. So, what would your advice be when it comes to email in business?
Oh, go ahead.
Anybody?
Sure.
So, for all of you guys.
I think email is one of these things where it's important to be aware that people are not reading email the way they used to. It's almost become, the SMS or, text messages have become the, one of the sort of primary transactional means of communication. It's sort of where I find myself sending texts to tell people that I've sent an email. But that's the reality of the situation now. I think the point you make about accountability through email, it's just very important that you look, particularly if the topic is contentious, go back down the thread of the email. Don't just read the top 1 or 2 interactions, because you'll learn some very interesting things further down the chain. But also, I think it's really important that each of us takes the responsibility to stop the chain and to say, I'm stopping this email chain right now, and this is what's going to happen. This issue's going here, this issue's going there, and we're stopping this thread, because those threads can get ridiculous.
I'll add that I feel very strongly about email, because I'm unfortunately tied to my phone often, because those emails go off so frequently. And I always tell my managers a couple of things. One, start from the bottom and read up, because the story is always usually starting at the bottom. And then also, if it is a contentious subject, you don't reply via email. Pick up the phone, have a conversation, and then recap that conversation in the email. As per our conversation, when you read an email, there's no tone to it. Whatever the reader is feeling, they're going to project onto that email. So if they're having a bad day, even though you are feeling all sunshiny, they're going to project their feelings onto that email, because there is no tone. So give it a tone, picking up the phone and having a conversation, and then recapping that. If you need documentation, if you're worried about there being something missed potentially or misunderstood, because that can happen even when you have a verbal conversation, recap it in an email so that we're all on the same page, but they got the tone from you directly first. We have an online question?
Yes, we do. We have a question from our online audience. Can you elaborate more on the structured coaching program from your organization? What are the pros and what are the cons? I think that was, we always talked about that.
Yeah, so I think the pros, you have a designated person who you can go to, who will give you your evaluation, talk through the review comments that you receive from others, can help you gather that feedback if you don't want to ask directly for it. And hopefully that relationship's been established, so there is a little bit more of a personal element to it. The con is that people might use that as a crutch and solely rely on that one person to give them everything they need. And as we've talked about and panelists have said, you're not going to get everything from one person. And you need to look outside not only the person you were assigned, but also your organization, the industry that you're in, to see if there's other aspects that you're missing. So.
Is there a question over there? Last question of the night.
My name is Khroad. I'm a marketing student. My question is, what is the biggest challenge that you have faced while leading a team? Or maybe you just have entered, what have you done? How did you overcome that?
The question was, when leading a team?
Mm-hmm. Yes, leading any team or any situation.
You don't want to take that.
Very challenging.
I can say that my challenge, I'm still working through, is believing that I had their buy-in. I doubted that, I didn't doubt myself, but I doubted that they believed me for some reason. So that would affect my communication with them, the strength in which I would come forward with a directive or a suggestion or an idea. It was diluted because I questioned if they were questioning me, and I never got any verbal or evident pushback. It was just a feeling or a thought that I had that I don't know where it came from, but it came out, and it was believing that I was ready for that step. So finally just kind of sucking it up and saying, I'm here for a reason. I have the credentials, I have the experience, I believe in myself, and just forcing myself to step into that role, kind of faking it until you make it, and not waiting for my head or my heart necessarily to catch up with the responsibility or my position. It was mine. I'd already earned it, and I just they needed to catch up. So I would say that was my biggest struggle. And once I got myself to a point where I showed up, as we keep saying, you show up and you just take that step, it got better with practice. Just like anything else, just like a muscle, it gets better with practice. Ladies?
Yeah, I would say I think sometimes the biggest challenge is when you're leading either your own team, the people who report to you, or you're on a project with team, is everybody contributing equally. I think there's times where I've had other team members come to me and say, I don't think everyone is contributing equally. Some people may be putting in a lot more effort, others maybe not. I teach at Golden Gate University in the HR program in the South Bay, and it's interesting, even in the class when they're doing group projects, sometimes they'll come to me as the teacher and say, well, not everybody's contributing, and I say, welcome to the real world. And you know, what I can do is try to coach them through how do you address that? How do you address it when you don't feel everyone is contributing? I mean, the best thing in the world when you're leading a team is when everybody is a superstar and everybody's contributing and everybody's giving. But sometimes you don't actually know what's going on. And there could be some things that are either personal or other things that may be impacting. And honestly, the best conversation is for me to coach the individuals to go have those conversations, or be that person and say, look, your team members don't feel like you're contributing. What's going on? Let me help you. What do we need to do? And it may not be that the individual is purposefully not trying to. There could just be dynamics or personal or other things going on. And so always paying attention to the pulse of what is happening, and so that you can encourage everybody to be as successful as they can. And remembering that everybody brings something different to the table, that not everyone is going to bring exactly the same level of skill or experience, but everyone adds value. And so that can be challenging, because I've never had a situation where everybody was exactly on the same path. You just have to figure out how to get there.
Well, I think that is our last response for the night. It's just over 7 o'clock, so the panel portion has ended, but we are prepared to do a little more networking till about 7:30. Marianne, was there anything else that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just want to say, my goodness, thank you to this panel. I am feeling love for these ladies. So everybody. Personal stories about things that really have affected your careers, and thank you. I mean, I'm taking stuff away from each one of you, and I want to thank you all. I want to thank all of you for attending tonight. We will see you here next year, same time, same place. Don't forget, those lovely flower arrangements are yours for a donation to Dress for Success, helping women who need some help in getting dressed to go on these interviews that we learned a little bit more about how to handle. And we will be you will get an email following up that will have a survey asking you, how did you like it, what did you think, what do you want us to do next year. So please take the time to fill out that survey when you get that in the email. And I thank you all for coming. And one last thing. One of the things we were talking about with this get-together this year was someone came to me after this event last year and said, did you know that in the 1970s, GGU was really thought of as the place for women in business? It was really the hub in San Francisco for women in business. And I said, we got to own that again. So thank you all, and let's make GGU the place for women in leadership. Thank you.